Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the Woolly Wonka Fibers podcast. Today is Monday, February 1st, 2016, and I'm Anne. You can find me on the web at woollyWonkaFiber.com, which is my shop homepage. And then I'm also on Ravelry as Bunny Spinner. I'm on Instagram as Woolly Wonka Fibers, as well as on Facebook. So welcome back to all of you who have been tuning in for the previous podcasts. Today's going to be an overview of some of the things coming up in February. Super busy month for me, which is great. I'm a little hoarse today, slightly under the weather. We're having odd weather for us here in the mountains in northern New Mexico. Usually we get precipitation in the winter. It's cold enough that it is that light, powdery, fluffy snow. And today we're just having, it's damp and dreary and raining and sleeting, a little bit of everything. So not a very nice day to be outside, and I thought I would get caught up on a podcast before I jump back into the dye room for the rest of my day. So some shop announcements. The first I wanted to mention is that next Saturday, February 13th, I will be doing a book signing and trunk show for my book, Free Spirit Knits, at the Espanola Valley Fiber Arts. I'll put a link to their homepage in the podcast notes so you guys can check that out if you're at all local or have reason to swing through somewhere between Taos and Santa Fe. It's local to me, so that's kind of good. Not much driving involved. So I'll be there just for a few hours. I'll have a few yarns with me, as well as some rovings, but pretty casual, just a meet and greet. And so if you're in the area or haven't checked out the co-op before, please feel free to come by and say hi. Be nice to see everybody. The big news is 2 weeks from tomorrow, I will be setting out to drive from here in New Mexico to California to attend Stitches West, which I'm really excited about. I think it's going to be a great show. I'm really looking forward to it. I think I have all of the finalized paperwork and California sales tax input and all of that stuff ready to go. So I'm busily working on things in the dye room. One of the things that I wanted to be able to bring to a show of this size was a lot of sweater-sized lots. A lot of times folks ask, oh, do you have more of this colorway? And usually when I attend shows, folks buy a lot of single skein or two skein amounts for things like socks and shawls and cowls, which is great, but I've been having an increasing number of requests for sweater-sized or garment-sized dye lots. So that's what I've been working on. I've got a stove set up and been just cranking through those as fast as I can while working on some smaller runs in between. So the weather today is not very cooperative, but I'm getting done what I can get done and trying to get caught up on some skeining. I'm taking a ton of transitional packs, so if you are in the offing for one of those, I should have plenty. Fingers crossed. We'll see. Having not vended at this show before, it's hard to judge, if I'm totally overkilling this or if I will have two skeins left at the end of day one. Could be anywhere in that continuum. So that's what I am busily working on. The vending starts Thursday the 15th if you're somebody who is taking classes. So there's a special marketplace preview for class attendees the evening of Thursday. And then the marketplace is open for regular business Friday, Saturday, Sunday, normal kind of daytime hours. I'll be sharing a spot in my booth as well with the authoress Joanna Johnson, who she and her husband have written the adorable children's books, Phoebe's Sweater. And she has a new one that's just coming out called Henry's Hat. So she will be doing book signings on Friday and Saturday in my booth, and will be there because she's graciously consented to help me out, give me some breaks, let me run to the restroom sometime during the day. So Joanna will be there, and she is an absolutely lovely person. So if you have reason to come by and introduce yourself to both of us, we'd love to get to know you in person if we haven't already had that opportunity to meet you. So with that, I am going to try to sneak in one more podcast before I leave, but it'll probably be a very truncated one, since I'll be packing to set off on the quest. 2 long days of driving. I leave here, I go through Arizona into California. I'm splitting the drive up over 2 days since I'm going by myself, in terms of driving. I think 16 hours on the road is plenty. I don't mind doing the driving, but not all at once. 16 hours is a lot of time on the road. I don't know how the long distance truckers do it, but at any rate, that's what I'll be doing 2 weeks from now. And then once I get back from that extravaganza, I'll have some more information since I'm vending at Interweave's Yarn Fest, which is in Loveland, Colorado, just north of Denver, the last weekend in March. I did want to put the bug in your ear. If you are an East Coast kind of person, I'm actually going to be on the East Coast to teach a few classes and do a trunk show book signing. It'll be in the greater DC area. The 2 shops that I will be attending are both in Maryland. That will be over the weekend of April 15th, 16th, and 17th. I've got a couple of meet and greets planned, a couple of book signings planned, and then I'm also teaching classes, my color theory class, which is a really fun class. It's great for knitting, crocheting, quilting, anything where you're trying to combine colors and aren't maybe getting the results that you really love. This class will give you some great guidelines and some good basic information to kick you off, get you started with that. So I will link to those 2 shops also in the podcast notes for you all, in case you're local or mostly local, have a reason to come down to the Nova, Maryland area on that weekend. And hopefully all of these snowmageddons will be gone by then. The shop owners were like, don't come in January. Last year was horrible. And obviously I'm happy I dodged the bullet with the last big blizzard. So anyway, that will be on the calendar as well. And I'm looking forward to that trip. It'll give me an excuse to hit some of my friends who are back east and see my folks who are also back east. And yeah, I just think it'll be a good time. It'll be nice for me to meet these 2 shop owners who I've known. They wholesale my yarns, but I have not met them in person. So it'll be a fun trip. I'm looking forward to it. In other fun things, one of the things I like to do for kind of every show season is to update some of my business cards and logos, and I try to take advantage of some of the Vistaprint sales, which are quarterly or thereabouts. So this time around, I came up with this great new card, which I think you guys can see, mostly in focus. I just wanted something a little funkier. I got it on a glossier card stock, and the back has all of the details of my life everywhere I live. These will be kicking off at Stitches West. I have a fun new poster that has this on it as well to hang on the front of my booth. My good friend Joy helped me out, and she had a bunch of small charms. So she made up a number of stitch markers for me. They're really fun. They're little sheep. They're super cute. We'll be attaching those to the new business cards if you pick up $75 or more of yarn or product with me. You'll get that attached to the business card to take home with you as a little Stitches West memorial, and hopefully have it as something fun to use and remember that you had a fantastic time there. The class list looks wonderful. I know they generally do have wonderful classes. I've taken classes at Stitches before. Um, but this year looks really good. So hopefully there'll be a great attendance. And if you plan on coming through again, please stop by and say hello. I think that's it for kind of shop news. I will have two new self-striping sock yarn colors to debut next time. That'll probably be a lot of the podcast next time, but I've got two new colorways developed, and those will go up for orders around the 15th of February. Let's see. The world of design. I am really happy to report that I have completely finished my men's/unisex sweater on size 2 needles. It's all done. The draft is off to the magazine. The sample is off to the magazine. All of that is en route. So that was sweater 1 of 3 that I had been working on. Sweater 2 of 3 is also finished except for sewing on the buttons. It's all blocked. It's finished. I'm really happy with it. I tossed it on. It's my size, so I tossed it on. I think it's going to be a great season-spanning kind of sweater, the kind of thing you can toss on with jeans. You could toss on with a little black dress. You could throw on over a sundress. It's knit in my DK weight superwash merino, and it's the Sweater Club offering, which will be going out mid-March for those folks who have signed up for it. And you still can sign up for that on the website if you're interested. The pattern will also be available separately, so you can just pick that up if you don't want to purchase the yarn for it. Being a member of the club, however, gets you a little discount on the yarn, so that may be something that you decide that you can't live without. And you get to pick the color for that. I custom dye the color that you want, so you get the sweater color that suits you best. So that leaves me with sweater number 3, which I have actually already started. I cast on the sleeves for that last night, and it's a new to me yarn that I hadn't worked with before. It's a very interesting construction. It's a chain plied alpaca, so it's almost like a little I-cord tube of a very fine lace weight alpaca that's been cabled in some way. It's extremely bouncy. I was a little bit worried with it having such a heavy alpaca content that it might droop a little bit, but when I did my swatch, I found that the yarn construction itself is really amazing in terms of how well it holds its shape. So it's knitting up into almost of a boucle feel to it. It's super, super soft, has a lovely soft hand, and it's springy. It's very bouncy, but not stretchy exactly. It's an interesting yarn. I'm enjoying working with it. You can see my little swatch here. It's a charcoal gray, but I don't know if you can see that? It's kind of a chained, very stretchy, spongy yarn. So I'm excited about this one because I get to have the sample back, and this charcoal gray is one of my absolute favorite wardrobe neutrals because it goes with so many things. So this product, let's see if I've got my yarn tag here. Show you guys this. It's a Shibui yarn, and it's the yarn name is Ma'ahi. It's 70% baby alpaca and 30% merino wool, and it's a DK weight. I did not specifically choose this yarn since it's an interweave project. They assign the yarn to you, so it was a pleasant surprise. It's always fun getting to work with something that you haven't had a chance to work with and finding out that it's another lovely yarn to put into your stable of things you would work with again. So I'm working on this. The plan is to try to get the sleeves finished up this week or through the end of the weekend. My folks are coming into town on Friday morning. They're going to be here for the Super Bowl since we didn't get to see them for the holidays. As far as my dad is concerned, a weekend with football is basically a holiday weekend. So he and my mom are coming for that. So we'll have a little social time, but I certainly can knit sleeves in the round without worrying about interacting or not interacting too much. So I've got that on my plate, but that's the last one to get finished up. It's due the first week of March. So I have about a month to work on it. And then I will be on to some independent design releases that I'm really excited about. I don't know if y'all can hear our old dog has the worst wheezes this time of year, and she's in the other room on her bed, wheezing away like some 90-year-old asthmatic. Sorry about that. Anyway, that's where I am with design things. I have one shawl that I'm finishing up for the Heroines Club that should also be done sometime in the next week, I would think. I'm not quite 2/3 through it. I'm more than half, not quite 2/3, but I'm in the final larger motif section. So I'm working that up on a brand new yarn for club members as well, which I'm excited about. That's a half alpaca, half fine merino wool. That's it's very soft, but it has almost a handspun feel to it. It's a fingering weight yarn that's new from my mill. So that will be introduced the 1st of March. And I think another great workhorse kind of pattern that you could dress up or dress down. So I'm looking forward to having that to share with you all. I think that's it for design things. I'm moving along today. So in terms of some personal knitting, you can see behind me that I have finished my first handspun knit along project for 2016. This was the Hogmanay shawl that was part of the larger Nifty Gifty knitwear collection by the designer Jen Lucas, and I'll link that in the podcast notes for you all. This was a great shawl for handspun. You can, if I had about 440 yards, and the original pattern called for 400 yards. And so I decided I'd just kind of knit along and see how it went. I managed to get an extra half a repeat of the longest rows, plus I added an extra 2 rows of garter stitch before I bound off. And really, you could make this shawl any size and really almost any weight of yarn. You know, obviously, if you're going to knit it in worsted versus fingering, you're going to want to bump up your needle size, and the shawl proportionately will be that much bigger, but there isn't any real reason that you can't knit till you run out of yarn, or pretty close. And a great way to use up maybe a couple of things, a couple of skeins that you have in stash. I wouldn't say the pattern is for 100% beginner lace knitters. I think it's easier if you've at least knit some lace. The pattern for me wasn't intuitive until I had knit about 2 repeats of it. I needed to keep looking at it and figuring out what I was doing, how the motifs were working together. But that said, you certainly can put in extra markers, and I'm sure with a little bit of patience, be fine with it. I just wouldn't attempt it as my very first lace project. Maybe something with less shaping and a more easily recognizable lace pattern right from the beginning. So this was knit with 400, let's say 420 or so yards of hand spun. You can see it's got this great curved shape to it. It's really wearable. You could wear it up around your neck as a scarf. You could wear it hanging loose. It's a slightly asymmetrical triangle shape in the back. And I'll link to my finished object posts in Ravelry as well, so you can kind of see some different layouts of how it looks. Turn this around. And there's the back. So you can see the point, as I have got it here, is slightly off center to have it wrap a little bit more around in the front. I really enjoyed working with my handspun for this. You can see, I think even in today's horrible light, there's a little bit of glitz and glitter. There's a close-up photo on my project page as well that kind of shows the different colors in the handspun because it looks very dark. The original fiber that I used were hand-carded bats from Enchanted Knoll Farm that I've had in my stash for, I think, 6 years. They held up really well, being carted around in bins for that time. But it was a blend of superwash merino that was dyed black and kind of a dark plum burgundy color. And then that was blended with gold glitter and blended with scraps of sari cloth silk. So there's little pops of color that read up close, but not quite so much from a distance. Let's see if I can show that to you guys. Kind of, sort of. I don't know, it might be too dark. You can definitely see the glitter in it. So really a fun knit. I had a great time with this. Used up a skein of handspun, which I was all about. So this one is in the books. I actually finished something that was not a work knitting project this year, which I am very happy. This one may be getting gifted. I don't know yet. I'm deciding whether or not it's something I'm going to keep and add to my wardrobe, or if it's something that is going to go off and have another life. We'll see. Just fun. This was fun. I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of knitting it. It was a nice relaxing project that I could pick up and work on for an hour and then move on and do something else. So since I got that off the needles and blocked and done, I went ahead and cast on for the next project that I'm knitting from my handspun. One of the spinning groups I'm in called Knitting Spinners, that's on Ravelry. Their focus is basically producing your final project as opposed to just having handspun that sits in your bins. So that's really encouraged me also to try some other things and do some different projects with my handspun. One of the things that they've been hosting this year in 2016 is a spin to completed finished object gradient project. And so I think you all will remember the iceberg that I spun. It's the Falkland colorway that's from my shop. So I had spun this up into a DK weight yarn, and I had just over 300 yards of it. And I really fell in love with the Dewberry Cowl by Hilary Callis. I will also link that in the podcast notes for you all. It's a combination of a cowl and a shawlette. So you start the pattern off working as if you're making a half circle shawl with concentric type increases to shape that half circle. And then once you're about 2/3 of the way through the pattern, instead of working back and forth, you join those increased ends into a round. And then it becomes a cowl that you can pull on over your head, but looks like you're wearing one of the smaller shawlettes. And the original pattern called for worsted to Aran weight, and it seemed a little dense to me, like the fabric was maybe going to be thicker than I wanted. And I did have plenty of yardage out of this particular skein, and I thought, you know what, this would be a really fun gradient project. So I went ahead and left the needle size the same. I mean, gauge isn't super important in this project, but obviously you don't want to eat up so much yarn that you are running out. So I kept it on size 8s, US size 8s, and I cast that on yesterday. So I'm through the first 2 sections. Section 1 ends here, and then this is section 2. I guess I have one more repeat of the eyelet left to do on section 2. So there's one more set of increases that will basically add a half again as much to that half circumference. And then it'll be ready to be joined in the round. So this will basically be the center front. like that. And then this will be hanging down in the front. So you can see I have not gotten through even into the next colorway change, but hoping that that will happen soon, because that's the fun part, where you get to see the colors shift. So I have, it's okay with me if I don't use too much of the gray, but I thought I would like to have the brighter color closer to me, and then the more neutral color a little bit further down. So let's do that. So I'm really excited. I don't think this project's going to take me very long to do, obviously, since I'm kind of focused and cranking along on it, but it will be my weekend for fun knit project. So I'll be working on that over the month of February. If I get that finished, I've got a ton of other handspun that I know I've got projects earmarked for. But it'd be nice to have that as well to add to the wardrobe before it gets, you know, spring warm here, just to tuck into the front of a coat or jacket neckline is a little extra layer. So I'll let you know about how wearable it is, because that's the other thing. I like the concept of it because it doesn't have any ends to kind of fall out. But whether it will wear comfortably and not ride up, I don't know. We will see. We will find out together. So that's my sort of other fun project that I'm working on right now. And then I've been busy doing some spinning, as you might have guessed. I've really gotten a lot accomplished in terms of converting fiber into yarn in the month of January, and I'm hoping that I can continue this trend. I'd really like to. So the spin that's up next, I showed you the first bobbin of it last podcast. It was one of the FatCatKnits club packages from, it was her famous couples club, the December 2015 kit. It was 2 colorways that were scarlet and ret, and they were on a swirl merino base, meaning the fiber base had both dark wool and light wool in it. And I love those humbug kind of blends. They give such a richness to the colors and such depth without really having to do much work as the dyer. You get some great effects with it. So as soon as I saw that in the listing when Ginny listed the club fibers, I picked that one right off. That was the easy button for me. I decided that I would take the 2.5 ounce braids that she sent, one of each of the colors, and spin them up separately and then ply them together. And this is what I got. It is a fingering weight 2 ply. All of the bright pops of color in it are from the scarlet colorway. It's the scarlet red, that bright green that you can see in there, some of the purpley blue that's there. And then the more muted colors are from the ret section of it. His colorway was kind of a charcoal gray, black, and a sort of gray blue. Very pretty, subdued. And I just thought it went really great together. You guys can see some of the colors there. So I have just about 500 yards of this in this skein, and I did some poking around on Ravelry, and I found a asymmetrical shawl pattern by Romi Hill that I loved, that I think will be okay with this. I mean, this is not a tonal yarn at all. It's got a lot going on in it, but I think the shawl will work. Of course, I didn't write the name of it down to share with you guys, but I will post that in the podcast notes so you can see what I'm looking at. It's got wedges in it, and at the ends of them is a triangular openwork shape. So fairly simple. It's not relying on anything that's a lace motif that you'd be trying to recognize in the midst of all of this color. But I'm just so pleased that I have enough yardage to make a larger size piece. So I think I'm going to try that with this one. It probably won't go on the needles for a while, but I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. And again, I will link that pattern in the show notes in case you have a yarn that you think would be perfect for that as well. This was a great spin. This base, this merino base, spun up so nicely. It was practically spun itself, which makes for a nice relaxing kind of spin. I like that. I like not to have to pick stuff out of my fiber. I like to just sit and spin. That's kind of my Zen moment. The last spin for the month of January, I've been doing really good in terms of new purchases, but the Completely Twisted and Arbitrary Spinners group has a sort of sponsored dyer every quarter. And I had kind of been surfing through Marianne's shop at Three Waters Farm at other points in time, thinking, well, when I'm off my my no-buy moratorium, I would move up her items to the top of my queue and think about picking something up to spin, because I had heard really great things about her fiber and her colorways. But the CTA group was featuring her as this quarter's spin-along dyer, and they had picked a really interesting theme of some 1930s artwork that Marianne used to come up with the colorways that she was offering for the spin-along, and I loved them. So I picked myself up a braid of Blue-Faced Leicester in the Mirror Lake colorway, and it is still available in Marianne's shop. I'm not sure how long she will have the listings up. I think at least mid-month, but they are kind of limited editions. So I will link to her Etsy shop in the podcast notes. So you guys can go check out the colorways and see if there's something you like. She's got the spin-along colorways on straight BFL, and then a Polworth silk, I believe it is, blend. And they're all indicated as CTA SAL in the colorway, so you know what you're kind of getting into there. So the colorway that I got was Mirror Lake, and here it is spun up as a 2-ply. I decided from the get-go that I really liked the color progression in this particular roving. I liked how the colors moved from one to another throughout. And so I thought the thing I would like to knit with the finished product was an asymmetrical shawl, something similar to that Hogmanay shawl that I did. And I haven't 100% decided on the shawl, but I knew that that was the direction I wanted to go. So when I opened the braid up, I found that there were 3 full color repeats over the course of that long strip of roving. So I had 3 sets of colors. I tore the roving at the thirds points. I kept 2 of those thirds exactly as is, and then I took the third and I split it evenly down the middle. So basically I had 2 full color runs of the roving. The beginning parts of both of them were just half of the roving, and then the final sets were a full thickness of the roving. And so I spun it up just end to end to match those 2 sets of color runs up. And then when I applied it together, I wound up with a lot of long color runs. Now, I wasn't super OCD about making sure that, you know, each color broke at exactly the same point. I kind of like the way that it blends. It looks more like a gradient if you have one ply that's starting to shift and it gradually changes over. So there are spots in here you can see where there's a little bit of barber pulling, like there. And then there are spots in there that are pretty much a solid color. So my hope is by knitting an asymmetrically shaped shawl with this, where you start out at one little skinny point and then you're increasing as you go along, the end that has the shorter color runs, meaning that half of the roving that I split in half, proportionately will wind up being at the top corner, so that by the time I get down to the bottom, the stripes will be evened out in the sense that they'll be more or less the same width, as opposed to having really big chunks of stripes at one corner and then narrower stripes when you're working those longer rows. This is the theory. We'll see how it plays out. This is another one I'm anxious to get on the needles as well. I'm probably going to use one of the Quaker yarn stretcher type patterns by Susan Ashcroft. So I will link to her pattern page, which is StitchNerd Designs on Ravelry. So you guys can take a look at that in case there's something in there that you all would find interesting. She writes a lot of patterns that work great with handspun because you can use different weights, you can use different yardages, and it's done in more of a percentage system where you measure or weigh out your yarn, and you know when you have about 20% left, you need to start doing X, or you need to work the finished piece when you have 5% of your yarn left. So really kind of a handy resource for handspun when you're trying not to run out and have to figure out how you're going to add on a border or 2 more inches, and this is all you've ever, this is all you've got to work with. Really, really happy with this spin. Again, I think the colors are great. I think it will make a really fun, casual accessory. BFL is one of my favorites to spin. I think it's an easy spin. It's not as foofy as merino or Polworth maybe, but I do like it, and I think it wears well. So for stuff getting shoved down into the front of a jacket or wrapped around your neck 7 times a day, I think it's a great kind of workhorse fiber. So right now on my wheel, I've just started, so I don't really have anything to show you yet, but I'm doing more BFL. This is from Deep Stash, to the point I don't even know when I purchased it. They're some of my very oldest braids, and they're from FatCatKnits. I'm not sure why I've never spun them up, because they're gorgeous colors. Maybe I was saving them for a rainy day. I don't know, but I hauled those out, and I decided that I was going to do a combo spin with those, so I'll have 8 ounces of fiber to work with. Spinning it fairly finely. I have in my head that maybe it would be great as a summer weight type short sleeve pullover. We'll have to see what kind of yardage I get. I suspect I would have to supplement it for ribbing or edging with maybe a solid color, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I've got the first set of 2 ounces of singles spun from colorway A, and I started the first 2 ounces of singles from colorway B. So with 8 ounces total, I'm going to be working on the singles for a little while before I even get to plying and can figure out where I stand with that. But hopefully we'll still have that finished in 2 weeks to show you before I go to stitches. I am going to take my little Hanson e-spinner with me on the road. It's a great relaxation thing for me in the evenings after I vend. Normally I just shut my hotel door or room, I eat out of my travel cooler, or I order room service and just try to regroup after a long day of standing up and talking with folks and being extroverted. Since I am highly introverted, that's my recharge moment. And spinning's great because it's so relaxing for me. It sort of unplugs me from the day. So so I hopefully will have some other hand-spun-y kind of things to share with you guys, even right after I get back, since I'm going to try to take the time in the evenings to spin while I'm out there in California. I think that's everything for today. A slightly shorter podcast this time around, but I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, I'm always happy to hear from you guys. If you decide to message me on Ravelry, you can always contact me through my website. And I will put all of the podcast notes and links up so you all can take a look at some of the stuff we talked about today in case any of it sparks a little creative interest at your end. But until next time, which will be mid-February, it'll be the 15th, hopefully, that I'll sneak in a quick podcast recording. I hope you guys have a great beginning to your February, and I'm looking forward to some hopefully nice spring weather coming up. Thanks, guys. See you later.